You've probably heard that humans have around 60,000 thoughts per day. Maybe you've seen it in an article. Maybe someone told you with complete confidence. It sounds scientific. It sounds impressive. There's just one problem. It's completely made up. Researchers traced that number back to its original source. And you know what they found? A blog post written by a plumbing contractor. The actual number, measured by real fMRI brain scans at Queen's University, is around 6,200 thoughts per day. Still a lot, but that's not the shocking part. And the shocking part is this. Most people spend their entire lives believing every single one of those thoughts and treating them like facts, like truth, like instructions. And the science of what that does to you is something nobody ever taught you in school. Your inner voice is not neutral. It is not always honest. And here's the thing that will change how you see yourself after this video. It might not even really be you. Stay with me. Let's start with the basics, because most people have never actually stopped to ask, what is this voice in my head? The scientific term is inner speech, also called verbal thinking, internal monologue, self-talk. Researchers Ben Alderson-Day and Charles Fernyhough at Durham University spent years studying it, and what they found is both fascinating and strange. Your inner voice is not some separate entity living in your head. It's your own brain simulating speech. When you think in words, which most people do constantly, your brain is activating the same neural pathways used when you actually speak out loud. In fact, a pilot fMRI study published in 2021 found that the brain activity produced by your inner voice is nearly identical to the activity produced by hearing an actual external voice. Read that again. Your own thoughts register in your brain almost the same way as someone talking directly to you, which means when your inner voice says you're not good enough, or nobody cares about you, or you're going to fail, your brain doesn't automatically file that under just a thought. It processes it like a real voice, like someone actually said it to you out loud. Now, do you understand why what you think about yourself has such a powerful effect on how you feel? It's not metaphorical. It's neurological. Here's where it gets really important and really uncomfortable. There's a psychological phenomenon called cognitive fusion. It was identified and named by psychologist Stephen Hayes, the founder of acceptance and commitment therapy, one of the most research-backed therapeutic frameworks in modern psychology. Cognitive fusion means this. You become so merged with your thoughts that you can no longer tell the difference between a thought and reality. Think about that. You have a thought. I'm not smart enough for this. And instead of seeing it as a thought, a piece of mental activity that came and went, you treat it as a fact. You build decisions around it. You avoid things because of it. You shrink because of it. Psychologist and researcher Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan calls this getting caught in your own chatter. His book, Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, documents years of research on how inner dialogue drives almost every significant decision people make. The jobs they apply for, the relationships they pursue, the risks they take or don't take. And the most important thing Kross found: most people have no idea this is happening. They think they're thinking. They don't realize their thoughts are thinking for them. Here's a way to feel this right now. Think of a belief you hold about yourself, something you consider simply true. I'm an anxious person. I'm not creative. I'm bad at relationships. Now ask yourself, when did you decide that? Was it a conclusion you reached after careful examination of evidence? Or was it a thought that appeared one day and you just never questioned it? For most people, it was the second one. This is the part that most people find hardest to hear, but it's the most important. Your inner voice is not original. Most of it isn't even yours. Developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky, whose work on inner speech became foundational in cognitive science, discovered something remarkable about how the inner voice forms. It begins outside of you. As children, we speak our thoughts out loud. You've seen this in young kids. They narrate everything they do. Now, I'm putting the block here. Now, I'm making a tower. Over time, that external speech gets internalized. It moves inward and becomes the voice you now hear in your head. But here's what that means. The voice you hear wasn't built in a vacuum. It was built from the voices around you. Your parents, your teachers, the kids at school who said something once that you've been carrying ever since. The critical voice that tells you you're not enough. There's a good chance it belongs to someone else. The anxious voice that always prepares for the worst. It might have learned that from watching someone else live that way. The voice that says, don't try, don't reach, don't risk. Someone probably said that to you first, and your brain internalized it and called it you. Ethan Kross describes it this way. Our inner voice is shaped by our experiences in ways we're often not aware of, and the most powerful shaping happens earliest, when we had no ability to evaluate whether what we were absorbing was actually true. So when you hear that voice in your head being harsh or fearful or dismissive, before you believe it, it's worth asking, who taught you to speak to yourself that way? The Buddha said something 2,500 years ago that neuroscience is only now fully understanding. He said, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." He wasn't speaking poetically. He was making a precise psychological claim that the mind creates the experience of reality through the filter of thought, and that most people mistake that filter for reality itself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential thinkers in history, put it even more directly. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things. Not the events of your life, your thoughts about the events of your life. That's what determines how you feel. That's what determines who you become." And what's remarkable about placing these two thinkers alongside Ethan Kross and Stephen Hayes in modern neuroscience is that they all converge on the same truth. The voice in your head is not the authority on who you are. It is a process, a habit, a pattern that formed over time. And what forms over time can change over time. That's not philosophy as comfort. That's the most scientifically grounded statement in this entire video. Let me be honest about something. This video is not going to teach you how to stop negative thoughts. That's not the goal. In trying to stop thoughts, science is very clear on this, actually makes them stronger. What the research actually points to is something different, not silencing the voice, changing your relationship with it. Stephen Hayes calls this cognitive diffusion. And research published in the Journal of Contextual Behavioral Science found that cognitive diffusion techniques can reduce the believability of negative thoughts by up to 50%. 50%. Not by arguing with the thought, not by replacing it with a positive one, just by changing how you relate to it. Here's what that looks like in practice. The first technique, labeling. When a negative thought appears, instead of absorbing it, name it. Not "I'm a failure," but "I'm having the thought that I'm a failure." A tiny shift in language creates distance between you and the thought. It reminds your brain, this is a mental event, not a fact, not reality, a thought. It sounds almost too simple, but the neuroscience behind it is real. That small act of labeling activates the prefrontal cortex, the rational, observing part of your brain, and reduces activity in the amygdala, the part that reacts emotionally to perceived threats. You're literally changing brain activity with a single sentence. The second technique, distancing. Ethan Kross found something fascinating in his research. When people refer to themselves in the third person, using their own name instead of I, they process their experiences with significantly more clarity. So instead of "Why am I so anxious about this?" you say your name. Why are you anxious about this? It sounds strange, but Kross's research shows it works. It creates what he calls psychological distance. Enough space between you and the thought to actually evaluate it, instead of just drowning in it. The third technique, and this one is the most important, question the source. When the voice says something harsh about you, something limiting, something fearful, ask yourself, is this mine? Or did I learn this from someone else? Is this the truth about who I am? Or is this a story I've been telling myself for so long it started to feel like fact? Because here's what the science of inner speech confirms. The voice can change. It changed before, shaped by the world around you when you were too young to choose. But you're not too young now, and the shaping is something you can participate in. That's not motivation, that's neuroscience. You have around 6,200 thoughts today. And for most people, most of those thoughts will pass through completely unexamined, treated as truth, treated as self. But you are not the voice. You are the one who hears it. And that gap between the voice and the one who notices it is where your actual freedom lives. The Buddha knew it. Epictetus knew it. And now neuroscience knows it too. You don't have to believe everything you think. And if you want to keep going deeper into understanding your mind, your patterns, your life, with honesty and real science, subscribe to Between Thoughts. This is exactly what we're here for. Take care.